Hey everybody, Kyle here. Aren't I full of enthusiasm? Brad and myself are both pretty big, long-time Skinny Puppy fans. And one of the things that we were really inspired by that they did was something called Brapping, where you put yourself into a state of mind where you are very uninhibited and very free and open. Skinny Puppy did this by dangerous amounts of illegal drugs. We mostly just stayed up really late and found at 4 a.m. If you've been up since 5, your brain's not working right, which actually health-wise is probably about just as dangerous. Yeah. We would set up our computers. We had a very bizarre setup where my computer would feed into Brad's, Brad would feed into mine, they'd feed into a speaker system, we'd have headphones, so we could kind of do our own thing, but then I could send Brad a signal that he could modify and warp and send back and vice versa.
There are often live recordings with microphones and live instruments as well.
Yeah, we would have a lot of live stuff. Oftentimes, the pattern that we kind of settled into would be Brad would have a few VSTs running in Fruity Loops, and then I would have audio mulch running. So for the most part, Brad would be actually generating the sounds, and then I would be doing all of the filters and distortions and all that sort of real-time effects processing.
Making annoying noises.
Yeah. And we also eventually would start working with small pre-recorded segments that might be like a 30-second loop, and then we'd get that going, and then we'd integrate those in to have, multiple layers. Sometimes we'd invite guests over and have little performances or little happenings. I don't want to call it a concert because an art happening it sounds more pretentious, which is more my style. The earliest Brap that we have recordings of, this is from November 9th, 2005.
Apparently it's one of mine.
We had a logo that we used 7 years ago. For the visuals, I literally loaded up that bitmap file that was made in Paintbrush for Windows 98, because I didn't have XP back then. And I just filmed the computer screen with the video, and then as the videos progressed, I would film the output, so it would just get more and more degraded and distorted. Gotcha. Yeah, this one, the first one, I actually think I had no involvement. I don't even know if I did sound design or distortion work in this one.
I don't know.
For the visuals, as I was progressing, I would leave my hand resting on the camera so the natural motions of my hand would give... Not this one, because this is the first take. So
I'm going to go on a limb and say that this is definitely one that I took the lead on, because that strings pad was my favorite at this time.
Yeah, this I think was the Citrus VST in Fruity Loops, and this is one of the pads. It was a nice. This is probably like Cinema or Epic, I think was the preset.
Probably Epic.
Yeah.
I also tended towards the rumbly, droning noise in the background.
Yeah.
Certainly not one of my best compositions, but as you say, being up late for very long periods of time, it seems appealing in the moment.
Yeah, I think the way my schedule worked is I would have one really late day followed by a really early day, and I would usually have so much of a workload that I just wouldn't sleep that night. I think it was... Yeah, Monday I'd sleep in, but then I'd go to class and stay out super late, and then Tuesday I'd have to be up at 6 and in class super late, so I just didn't sleep at all on Monday night. So then Tuesday nights would be Brap night. I think that's how it worked.
That lines up, as Tuesday night was another important night.
Oh, Al's Fish and Chip night.
Yeah. So that sounds about right to me.
Okay. There's a couple off notes in this, but we have the technology to fix them now.
I would rather preserve them as they are.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I was thinking of is now that we have these posted, what can we do with these Braps? One of the things I was considering, if you'd be interested and have the time, since you've got a couple weeks left to summer break, if I gave you the recordings, you could cut and paste and composite them together into an industrial or some sort of interesting composition.
We'll have to talk software, because all of the software that I had is gone.
Oh, okay. I still have the Fruity Loops perma-license from the late 90s, early 2000s, where if you paid for it on version 3, you got a lifetime of free upgrades forever, so I'm one of the few.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that note there.
Yeah, this preceded that little synth opera that I did for the... what was that sound design course at OCAD called?
Sonic Arts.
Yeah. This preceded that, because this informed that recording.
Yeah,
That's probably the best synthetic thing that I've written.
I had downloaded Audio Mulch, but didn't understand how to use it before that course, and I'd been frustrated, which is why I'm not... That's why there's no weird, annoying noise in the background of this, is because I didn't know what I was doing yet. So I'd been dabbling with Audio Mulch for a month at this point, and then we had Sonic Arts maybe just a couple months after we did this.
Yeah, maybe.
Picturing is like a huge cacophony of random noise and then just little bits of these pretty sounds sort of breaking through here and there.
Yeah, there's no real relationship between all of the clear notes there. It's just playing around on the keyboard as the keyboard keys correlate with notes on a keyboard.
Yeah.
We never did map that out, so it was mostly playing around and guessing with
I think it was more or less like the QWERTY row and the ZXCV rows were, I think, equivalent of white keys, where I think the ASDF row, or it is ASDF. That row, I think, was like the black keys.
Yeah, you might be right.
Or the piano, not the band. How do you feel about the visual accompaniment that I selected?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it makes sense based on the time period that we're talking about.
Yeah, because back then especially myself, I was really into feedback, so I would do stuff like this, so that was part of it. And I also, this was done on my old camera, not the new one, but I wanted the flaws of analogness to sort of work its way in. But the problem is modern lenses are so damn good, even after I did like 20 cycles, it wasn't happening. So I had to buy like, it was a macro filter attachment that's about the quality of a dollar store magnifying glass, just to be able to get all of the chromatic aberration that I wanted happening.
I gotcha. Like, I can see where I was going here, but I definitely didn't make it to there.
Yeah, it's like you can almost hear the idea that you were hovering around, but you never quite land on it.
No. And these come from those first years of electronic music experimentation.
Well, this was our very first Brap.
No, but I mean, even in the timeline of playing around in that studio in Scarborough, this was in the early years of playing around in that
that is true. This was
studio with that setup.
In fact, this was, I think, the first like live run through when we had that setup finally finalized. This was, I think, the first thing we did to like
before somebody spilled wine in my keyboard.
Let's not talk about that.
Or name the name of that person.
No need to do that.
So that was probably the first year that I lived there. So
that might even
in that timeline, it makes sense that this would be so rough and poorly realized.
Yeah. Like, this is the part where it's kind of fallen apart, where earlier it was...
Oh, it fell apart a little while ago. There was that brief pause in the audio, and that's where it just kind of meanders into nothingness.
Yeah, now I think for this part it was just the two of us, and...
Oh, yeah, there was nobody else for this.
Yeah, and I believe I was even on, like, I wasn't even contributing. I was still trying to, like, fart around with software inputs on my computer and make sure the software was recognizing that line 4 was connecting with input 4 and all that kind of stuff. So that was the very first Brap we ever did.
Hope it gets better from there.
It gets weirder.
Well, I mean, that could be better. We can interpret it that way.
It's different. Okay, so this is an April 24th.
Is my hand in the shot right now, or is it going to look like I'm fondling you?
Yes. That's staying in, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Regardless of where it is.
Hi, Phineas.
Yeah. Okay,
Good
so
boy.
this is a April 24th, 2006.
So like a year later.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, nearly a year later. This was when we had... I can't remember if this is one of our first jams where we're figuring out, or one of our first
I'll know
performances.
pretty soon if it's one of the jams.
All right. I just... Oh, and I had the camera underexposed by about a third of a stop, so each time it went, it would go darker, which would also make the colors saturate more.
I want to say that this is live because it sounds like my bass is running through your computer and you're fiddling with it.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that showed up a lot. Being a bass player, I would just bring that thing out as my live instrument.
Whereas I'm a horrifically incompetent guitar player, so I would usually set up something like a drum rhythm and then link my overdriven, heavily distorted guitar to that, sort of like a sidechain. No, the opposite of a sidechain. So the guitar sound would only come through when the drum beats were happening. So
I gotcha.
It would make it seem like I could handle a strumming pattern and chording at the same time, which I totally can. It actually does kind of have that like early industrial dirty grittiness to it that a lot of the newer clean computer digital stuff lacks.
Yeah, like I've heard those, I don't know what to call them, those high-pitched noises are pretty close to them in early frontline assembly.
Yeah.
Again, of course, their sounds would have sounded so much nicer than that, but that... Again, it helps me track back to this is what we were listening to at this time, so this is a sound that we would have tried to replicate.
Yeah, I think
intentionally or otherwise.
Yeah, I think during this time, what was it? It wasn't Last Rites. It was the album Skinny Puppy put out after that.
Mythmaker?
No, but long before Greater Wrong of the Right. The Process. I was listening to The Process a lot before. When we were doing these Braps.
Yeah, I can't remember if this was before or after the Greater Wrong of the Right came out.
It would have been after. But at the time, I was still listening to The Process more because it's a much better album.
I don't know, it was a great concert. That was pretty fantastic.
5 times now, plus over once as a solo thing. Great shows. If we ever did a performance live, this would be like a good background thing to project. It just fits with Headless Studios.
Unfortunately, this would be the music while everybody's waiting for us to come out.
And when we came out...
And it may not get any better than this.
May not? I mean, certainly wouldn't.
Oh, man. It'd be better than the opening act for that concert, though.
Autobahn correct.
Yeah.
You think they were bad? You should have seen the White Mice that were opening from them 2 concerts later.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, credit to him for doing sonic performance art, but it was really difficult to listen to as an opening act for something that was meant to be musical.
Not
wrong place.
Yeah. Interesting artist, wrong venue. This one, I think, has a lot of my influence on the sound design.
This definitely is your sound design in that I was using a live instrument at this time and you were operating the computer. Yeah. So I was doing note selection and then you were having to react to those selections.
Also, there's a thing improv comedians do where I think they call it corpsing. the other performer, where you're not trying to make something funny to make the audience laugh. You're trying to like make your co-performer laugh to ruin what they're doing so they look like a fool. And sometimes when we were doing these Braps...
Oh, like Gilda Radner and all those old comics.
Yeah.
Where they'd be doing live tapings. I can't remember the name of the show now. Where they're coming out of the little doorways, where they purposefully try and make each other crumble.
Yeah, so we would do. I would often do that with my sound design because Brad and I would be making a lot of eye contact and looking at each other, and I would just try to ruin your vibe.
Yeah, I don't imagine that there was a lot of that in this one, though.
Yeah,
it seems to hold together pretty well.
Yeah, this one is kind of weird. Oftentimes, I try to think of like a certain setting, like a swamp or a starry empty field on a starry night, or on top of the roof, or around a bonfire, just some sort of visual accompaniment, and I try to focus on sound that support that vision. Where this one, I'm getting absolutely none of that. I can see the mouse cursor moving around the screen, though. Yep. Now it sounds like I'm being swarmed by mosquitoes or bees or something.
In a tunnel.
Well, that's because delay is awesome and everything needs more of it. It's like overdrive. You can never have enough. Delay, overdrive, and garlic. Always have more than you think is called for. That ending. That was a legit the computer screwing up too, because you know how sometimes when it would lose a signal.
Yeah, that's okay. If it's in there, it deserves to be in there.
Yeah, and I thought it was just a good way to. That's why I added the fake digital thing for the text too, to kind of. Oh, that's all right. Alrighty, so now August 8th. 2006.
Non sequitur, but we should do a In the Pale Moonlight.
We should.
It's been a long time since we've done one of those.
I haven't done one in a while either. Okay. Oh yeah, it's that icon.
Yeah, it's not full screen. It's cast.
You'd think after doing something like thousands of times
now,
I would get better at it. And. Oh, I suppose I should read the little text blurb to make sure you're okay with my description.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me, but go right ahead.
Brap. No thinking, just reacting in a free and
uninhibited.
I have a university degree, and I can't read.
How many takes is it going to take you to get this right?
Okay. Back in 2006, Brad and I had a bit of an experimental industrial noise band thing going on. 12 years later, I realized, why not put this shit up on YouTube? The video was created in April of 2018. I should update that because clearly I did copy and pasting. Using analog feedback techniques that I would have used back then rather than all the fancy digital filters I would use today. If you would like some additional info and the story behind these Braps. Oh, I guess I clicked a video where I described them, what's going on. Whatever. All right, let's watch the August 8th, 2006 one.
Yeah, maybe. Because we did do a back and forth where I did things when I came back from university to home.
And sometimes I would prepare a file and then send it to you and you'd butcher it, and then you'd send something to me and I'd really butcher it. So let's listen to this one. Okay, start playing. I do think the visuals kind of work with that, like, dirty. It reminds me of, like, late 80s, early 90s sci-fi action movies where they made everything dark to hide how bad the effects were.
This sounds like another one where it would have been me as source sounds and then you filtering it out.
I actually completely forgot about you playing the bass when we were doing these. I remember like the one where I was playing with the guitar, but even that one, it was more like the guitar was on my thing and I was just like punching it so the strings would ring to give a tone, and it was really the...
It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like.
No, with the camera. Oh man. Someone in YouTube...
You're gonna laugh when you watch that.
Someone in YouTube land will
back.
have a lot of fun turning that into a looping animated GIF.
Yep.
Are you a GIF person or a GIF person?
I'm a GIF person.
You may continue living.
I don't care that the originator of said format says otherwise. No, it's a hard G.
What, you don't think the graphics interchange format should be? Are you like a drape? Jape? Yeah, oh.
There's some guitar in there too.
So this is me plucking on a guitar. I've got some creepy red lights in my room that I use at nighttime because I've kept that whole red light district thing going for... I don't know where we even came up with red light district because Coil's thing called it black light district, but I guess red lights are what...
I still have that sign somewhere downstairs.
Oh, the metal one or the... Because I found the canvas one that we had today when I was cleaning out the parents' basement after the flood, and it was just moldy and shitty and gross, so I burned it. I found it yesterday. I burned it last night, so it's no longer with us, but it was still around.
I'm pretty sure that I have the metal sign that was LED backlit.
Oh, that one!
That I cut out by turning up the TIG welder to 11. I don't think that I used the plasma cutter for that, but I could have.
So there's a plasma cutter here and a TIG welder here, and to do the job of a plasma cutter, you choose to take the TIG welder and turn it up too high.
Yeah, because we were also painting patterns with the TIG.
You're right.
So
I'm just trying to make you look like a fool.
This was a time in my art career where I was very interested in metals and how they change color by being rusted by different chemicals, by being patinaed by different chemicals, and by treated with heat.
Nice. Oh yeah.
So that's why our sign had different colors based on temper, as well as different materials and oxidization.
Just one thing that's really frustrating me, in that top corner where there's that little hit of red is the reflection off the screen getting picked up on camera. It looks like there's one hot pixel right in the middle of it, and it's pissing me off.
Yeah, there is a hot pixel there.
Fortunately, old camera, not this camera.
So one of two things has happened with the source sound for this.
Yeah.
Either this was both of us creating source sounds in different passes.
Yeah.
This was Kevin joining in.
Oh, because Kevin did join in.
Because he did participate in one of the live recordings I think most of these came from.
Yeah.
And that would mean that he would be using the guitar. Or that was still just me, and it was so high up on the G string on the neck that it came off pitch bent as a guitar.
It could have, or the other possibility, there were times where I would record chunks of guitar and then loop them, and I would have it looping in the background, and if I wanted guitar tone to come in, I could
I forgot about that.
And fade that in, so that's another possibility. Although that guitar playing sounded... I don't want to say borderline competent because it's not there, but it sounded like the person knew more about guitar than I do. So I'm going to go with your Kevin theory or your bass theory.
Maybe.
Because
he was a little bit more careful when he joined in as well, so he would have picked out notes as opposed to just brushing the strings.
And by picked out notes, I don't mean like musician style.
Just isolated sounds.
I mean like Ramon style, where it's like when I hit this string, you hit the same string at around the same time, and it'll work.